Hello everyone, this is Yu Tsai. Welcome to Let's Talk. Thank you for joining me today again. Today my talks will be a little bit sweeter than others because today my guest is executive pastry chef at the world-renowned Le Bernardin in New York City. He's a fellow Asian American, so I'm so excited to hear about his perspective, how he made his way into executive chef in a competitive world, in this crazy, crazy kitchen world that we're going to visit with him. So my guest today is renowned executive pastry chef Raquel. Thank you for joining me here today. All right, so where are you right now?
I'm in New York City.
How have you been in New York City this entire time?
No, the beginning of the lockdown, I was in Connecticut. I was lucky enough that I was there for 2.5 months and came back about a month and a half ago.
Well, I've been seeing
almost 2 months now, I guess.
Yeah, I've been watching your Instagram and see that you've been very busy in the kitchen making all these incredible meals at the restaurant. Tell me a little bit about what's going on there.
So Le Bernardin we have a partnership with World Central Kitchen. So we provide meals. So Monday to Friday, we make 400 meals for Mission Bowery. In the beginning, it was for frontline workers. Now, there's still demand for food. So we've been making 400 meals, every day for Mission Bowery, which has been rewarding, honestly.
Is the restaurant actually open to the public right now?
No, we are closed.
See, that's what's amazing to me. So many restaurants out there, you guys have been closing, and because of the restrictions and ability for people to eat outside and all these restrictions. And what I found over this last 3 months is realize that the food industry have become even more resilient and collectively together and putting forces together to put food out there for first responders and the people in need. And it's so ever important. That's something that I have learned throughout this time, that the chefs are the first to show up at any time of crisis and the first at the front line and supporting them. So thank you so much for being part of that amazing effort.
No, I mean, we are all cooks, like just as yourself, like, I'm a chef, and it's human nature. I mean, for me, it's like, I don't know what else to do. I was going crazy when the whole lockdown happened, and how do you apply yourself, and how could you do something that is a little bit more meaningful than just watching Netflix.
Well, one thing that we know is that when you get to cook for your friends, when you get to cook in the kitchen and feed people, it brings so much incredible joy. And I think in the very beginning of this time, the difficult time everybody's going through, we have to kind of figure out how we can get that feeling back, whether it is on IG Live, whether it is cooking tutorial for people, and it's incredible to see that you get yourself back into the kitchen. And how many meals again you cook a day?
400.
400 meals a day.
Yep.
And providing for the needy. And that to me is what I think the silver lining of this entire craziness we're going through, that we find people with amazing core kindness and able to share that kindness with people. So thank you for that, and thank you so much for being in the kitchen. Now, usually you are not known as a savory chef. You are executive pastry chef. Give us a little bit of glimpse what that means.
Well, I run the pastry department at Le Bernardin. Le Bernardin is a 3 Michelin star restaurant. I believe we've had 3 Michelin star for the past 15 years. Actually, yesterday was my 6th year at Le Bernardin. Very grateful. It's been a job of a lifetime. I've grown as I would always tell Chef Repair that, he gave a stupid kid from Chicago, a chance. And, 6 years later, I'm still here, and how I've come, I've come so far. And, I moved here to New York with all these goals of like, I want to do this, I want to accomplish this. But, the job it's a big job, and, I have a big team, and they're all great. And, like you forget, sometimes you forget about yourself, and you apply yourself to the job, and my team, they're practically my kids.
Wow.
It's been rewarding. It's been a rewarding 6 years, and I can't say that it's a job because it's a family. I think Le Bernardin is a big family.
How
So
did you
I'm
enter that?
blessed.
How did you enter that kitchen? What did you enter as executive chef right from the start?
Yeah, I was in Chicago, and they reached out to me, and I flew to New York. I think they reached out on Thursday. I was on a flight on Friday, and I had a meeting with Chef Repair in his office, and I remember it was a 15-minute interview, and I was like, oh my god, I blew it, but
Wait.
no.
It was an interview. He didn't taste your food.
No, he did. It was an initial interview. It was just an interview, and then we moved on to another interview, and then I think, yeah, and we did a tasting eventually. So
So
I mean,
I
I was
love that.
26.
I
You know,
love
I
that
was,
you make it sound just so like, oh, 6 years working there, but you just skip the whole part that the interview is difficult, the nerve that you have to get there,
no,
and then you have to prepare the meals for them to try, right? There's a whole. I feel like you're in a competition show of your own just to get that job.
Chef Repair. If obviously I've worked there for 6 years now. He is so kind, and whenever we do like tastings for new desserts or whatever, he would always say like, Thomas, relax. Like, have I ever been mean to you? Have I ever given you a hard time? Have I ever, I was like, no, chef. But in my head, I'm always, like, he's still Eric Repair. Like, I respect him, like I'm still nervous, like he's my boss and I always want to, deliver. But yeah, I still remember the first meeting. It's humbling. It's a very humbling, to look back from where I started to now. I was 26 when I moved to New York and started this job. So
That's incredible. That's incredible. But what was it the reason that you chose to go down the path of pastry chef rather than a savory chef, for example?
I went to culinary school and I did the whole program. And
Was that always your passion before you go into that? Was that always your passion to be a chef?
I didn't really think I was going to, growing up, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but it sort of just segued. I went to culinary school and then sort of just fell in love, and it fit in. It makes sense. It made sense. It's something that is so innate, I guess. It's like something that is inside me that it feels so comfortable, and I can't imagine doing anything else but cooking.
Well, I have to ask, because you said that you thought you were going to be a doctor. As an Asian American, I can relate to that very well. Our culture always want us to be doctors or lawyers or whatnot in that category. And when you found your passion in the kitchen, was your family supportive? Were they excited for you and that this is that this is a path that you should be on?
I think in the beginning there was a lot of doubt because culinary school was 2004, 2003. Cooking wasn't as glamorous as it is today. At the time,
is it glamorous? Is it glamorous?
I mean, now I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot more. There's a lot of celebrity chefs, right?
Visibility.
There's a lot of culinary school students coming out of culinary school thinking that they're going to be, an executive chef of a place. Yeah. So no, my family had obviously their reservation that you're not going to like it. It's hard work, blah, blah, blah. But, one of the first gig I think I've ever done was, I think Wolfgang Puck used to get culinary school students that would work per diem for his catering company for, the Golden Globes or the Academy Awards. And I remember I did one of those things. And I remember, getting off class and then going to do this thing. And I remember making miniature burgers inside of a walk-in and making like 400 of them or something. And I remember just being so excited that oh my God, I'm in a real kitchen. I get to do this. You know what I mean? I'm actually in a kitchen getting paid for this. I can do this for a living.
Well, I
Um,
appreciate that because I'm on the other side of the table eating those things at those events. So thank you so
yes.
much. I've been to many of Wolfgang Puck's events like that, and it's incredible food, incredible ethic how he builds his team around him as well. And I want to touch about a little bit about, and being Asian American and working in this field because I think especially during this time that we talk about inclusion a lot in every sector of the business. And I'm curious about in the world of kitchen, is there any issues in the past and anything that you see that should really look internally and change in the kitchen when it comes to inclusion and diversities and rankings in a patriarchal kind of society within a micro habitat of a kitchen?
You know, I, for me, I am fortunate enough that I've never really had any experience of racism, or maybe if there was, I was not aware of it, or I've never really, I personally have never subscribed to that like I am brown, I am a minority of this country, but I've never, my parents have raised me that, my grandparents and my parents have raised me that everything's available to me. I just have to go after it. My grandmother always told me growing up is that, like, you like nice things, you need to do well in life, and I know in my heart of hearts that whatever it is, I need to stick to it and I need to apply myself and work hard and do it, and I think that sort of just bleeds into how I am now. I think as a chef, that it's like I think we touched we talked about this, about how you expect to everybody works hard, right? Everybody works hard in their own field, and they're um I never thought I would ever, you work hard, especially in the kitchen. Everybody works hard. It's hard work. It's grueling. It's a lot of no's than yes. You need to be tenacious. Like the tenacity needs to be there. But I never thought it would ever pay off. And that's what I was talking about being at Le Bernardin for 6 years. I never, I've always wanted to work at Le Bernardin, and to get this this chance, it's definitely incredible for me.
But I think it's
But I have
also
never had, yeah, but going back to your point, my ADD is, kicking in, but I've never really experienced that specifically, but yes, does it exist? 100%. I think for me and my team, and but I'm sure my team is watching right now. You know, I never judge them for, whether they're a boy or a girl or black, blue, or purple. It's based on their competency and their eagerness. I always say that, like, I can teach anybody, like, we can teach them how to work, right? It's just the you can't change the attitude, you know.
But do you think that's because you're working at a restaurant where Eric Ripper leading the team that really give you that safety place to be? Because we hear a lot of horror stories in Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential book.
Right.
We see how we celebrated House Kitchen for many years, that throwing things across the kitchen, it's normal.
Right.
And that's the same that we do in my industry as well. For years, we celebrated somebody like me screaming and yelling at models, and that's supposed to be entertainment. And people think that really does happen. But I do know in the kitchen environment, it does get intense, and there is a hierarchy, and there is a bit of classism. I grew up in Terre Haute, Indiana, where my dad is Chinese, and he goes into the kitchen, he's going to wash dishes first. And the Hispanic guy is going to be the busboy. And then the person behind the stove is going to be the executive chef that's predominantly white. So I think that maybe 10 years ago, I think that's very prevalent. And knowing that you are in a position where you are with an environment that foster diversity and growth, that's really needed to be noted, because we don't see that in every industry. And we're fighting for that right now, especially for Asian Americans and Black community. I think it's so important that we talk about that.
In kitchens, yeah, it's tough. I mean, I've worked at places where, you could say it's abuse, but I took it as, I worked at a restaurant in Chicago, and it was one of my first jobs when I moved to Chicago, and it was a tough job. Like we come in at 10, you leave at 2:30 in the morning, and as soon as you come in, you push, and you extend yourself, and like the ethos was, when you think you're doing good, do better. If you're working hard, work harder. And I had patches of white hair. I had bald spots in my head because of, you're so stressed and you're so obsessed with every single thing you did, because you wanted to do it, you wanted to be perfect, because the chef was amazing. Was there a little bit of I don't think we could get away with what happened at that restaurant today, but I was great. I personally am grateful for that experience, because it pushed me to be the chef I am, and it made me a better chef. It made me a better chef so I could be kinder to my team. And I talked to my assistant Laura, my sous chef, and I would tell her that, like, sometimes I feel like it's a disservice to them that I'm not as hard, like I'm not as crazy, like I don't demand, I'm not like this crazy chef towards them, because I know how it feels to be in the other side of that. For me, I thrive off of that. Like that gets me, going, and like, yeah, like I could do better, or like blah 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 blah. But I also know that it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable to spin somebody into, to push somebody like that, because you burn them out, and not everybody's equipped to handle that.
I think that's a cultural thing too. I think that's such a cultural thing that we are, the Asian culture is. The fact is that you work hard, you put your head down, people are screaming at you, that's tough love, and that's what you just take it and you work harder, you become successful, nothing else matters. But for me, I think during this time that I get to evaluate my own behavior as well as the behavior that's set on me, and we become a reflection of how people treat us. Until we can make changes like you're doing, you can't reach kindness, right? That's an evolutionary process that I'm definitely taking note of myself, because in this competitive business, you do become, I hate to use the word crazy, but yeah, most people who know me, and even Blake, your agent here, I saw him sign on. Everybody knows me. I'm the Yu Tsai photographer that's a crazy one, but you're going to have a good time on set. And the things that we have said and done that's inappropriate then, it would not be accepted today. It was something we all celebrate and clap and think was funny. So I love seeing that change is actually permeated throughout different industry now, right? We're seeing the corporate world that are adjusting. We're seeing the kitchen environment that's adjusting. And especially, I think, how can you be an angry pastry chef? How can your food taste sweet and delicious and great if you're putting anger toward that food before you serve it?
I truly believe, and when I make something, we got a super nice note from somebody at Mission Bowery, and and I truly do believe in when you're making something, you sort of meditate while you're making it for the people, and I hope that they enjoy it, and for somebody to send a note and that they appreciate it, and it means a lot. For me, before this whole what is this? The Me Too, before there were a lot more awareness about harassment in the kitchen. Prior to moving to New York City, this is a unique story. I don't think I shared this with you last time we talked, but one of the cooks that I work with, I was so tough on him, and when he started, I was so tough on him. He's like this 6'2", like muscle guy, and I literally used to like harass him. I used to literally step on his foot and like get in his face and like practically bully the guy, because that's how I learned. And and he went to the savory side, and years later I ran into him, like prior to actually moving to New York. I ran into him. He was a server at a sushi restaurant, and I'm like, oh God, this guy is gonna like do funny stuff with the food. And then I was like, no, I should apologize, because it was this awkward, like I felt guilty. So I came up to him and I pulled him aside and I said, hey man, I just want you to know, I really am sorry. You didn't deserve that. I was under a lot of pressure, And, but it sounds like an excuse, but you didn't deserve that. And what he said to me, really, I could still feel it till this day. He said, you know, he's like, he's like, don't apologize. He's like, don't apologize because I understand where you were coming from. And if anything, like, thank you for, thank you for like pushing me, and you helped me realize that I wasn't willing to give what you were willing to give, what you were giving. And, like, that broke my heart because I was hard on him because I wanted him to do better. Right. So, like, that's how I learned. And that's how you sort of teach, right? When you learn, teach. But, like, at the time, I mean, I've evolved since then. I've been to therapy and all of that. But, to have that guilt of breaking somebody's spirit, or like, that was not my goal. Like, like, I've been tough on people, but I know in my heart of hearts, it's never been malicious. It's never been rooted in a way to break them. If anything, I've always wanted to encourage people to do better because, but we all evolve as people, and the industry, hopefully this, like, with what's going on, you would actually create a change. And
we're seeing the evolution happening over the last 5 years, and I couldn't be more proud of it. And as somebody who loves food and watching food content on television as well as social media, what I love to see is that the LGBT community has really been celebrated in the food sector for the last 10 years. And a lot of it had to do with Top Chef, that seeing a competition show like that actually celebrated so many chefs and then talents on the show that can be openly gay. And I celebrate this every time I talk about the food because Melissa King just won All-Star on Top Chef. And being Asian American, being openly gay, and by the way, she's gorgeous, guys. She's gorgeous. And Kristen Kish as well was somebody.
I mean, I just saw, I was with Kirsten like a couple of days ago, and she's beautiful. I mean, she's beautiful.
Stunning, but stunning because the inside of who they are. And she's been on the show, and we talked about this, that I know everybody takes their time to get to where they are. And I'm lucky enough that I am sheltered in a fashion business and a photography business. It's almost like you have to have that gay card to get into the business. So I'm sheltered by that. And through this conversation I've been having with different chefs and also people outside of my industry, that I learned it's not always that simple and that easy. Was it like that in the kitchen? Was the LGBT community protected? I should say protected, not necessarily celebrated, but protected in a heated kitchen environment.
I think for me, it was definitely a different journey. I think I personally wanted to prove my worth, right? Like, I wanted to be, I wanted to be Thomas as the pastry chef, and not just like, gay or bi or whatever. I didn't want that. It's not necessarily shame, but it's more just, that is a part of me, but that's not something that defines me. Right. I've worked in places where it's fairly conservative, and you have to play the game. Right. It's a game to be played. And a lot of people don't understand this. And I have a lot of gay friends that have crucified me they're like, you live in New York City, you work at Le Bernardin, blah, blah, blah. You're talented, da, 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 da. It does make me feel bad. And, up until this past cookout, actually, Blake was with me, and we talked about, he's like, like, you're this talented guy, and, like, you're respected by your peers, but you shrink yourself when it comes to, like, being open. And, like, this is the first time me even mentioning it publicly, because I dated girls. I've been, and it's always just been something that's separate, from my identity in a kitchen to my personal life. There's a clear distinction of that, because I didn't want that to be not necessarily part of my narrative, because like a lot of people put you in a box and that's all you are, and you can call it what it is, but it's playing the game, that it's just.
I can sympathize a bit about this, and I'll share the story with you that there's a predominant, really powerful brand for many, many years. It's on my bucket list to photograph with them. And the rumor always had that if I wanted to work with them, I had to be straight. And that means show up acting like you're straight, talk about girls like you're a bro, and basically talk down to them like they're objects when you go into the meeting. When I got the interview with them, I did that. I went so far as asked one of the models to pretend I slept with her, to spread rumor that I've been with her.
Oh my God.
That's how desperately I wanted to be part of this brand that I wanted to shoot for. I got the job. I got a contract. I had a 20-some days back-to-back booking. I was so excited to be there. I got called from model agents when I was casting. They're like, oh my God, you got in. By the way, don't let them know you're gay. And a lot of them were gay agents. And in fact, all of them were gay agents telling me, don't let them know you're gay. Pretend you're straight. Show up. Basically tell me to get back in the closet.
Right.
Well, I showed up. I pretended like I'm a bro. I don't know how good I was. I did what I had to do. And I did exactly what you said. I did exactly what I had to do and played the game. On the 5th day of that shoot, a model showed up that I know for very long time, and I love her, and she's a ballerina by training, so those people who are listening who are agents, they can guess the model and also guess the story, the brand that we're talking about. She and I started doing a ballet routine together because I was a dancer in the past life. I always said before she landed on her pirouette, I got a call from my agent, and my agent literally said this to me: hey, Yu Tsai, after today's shoot, pack it up, you're coming home. I said, what? I have so many days. He goes, no, they just called and told me that your personality does not fit their brand.
Wow.
And I listened. I went to the bathroom, I cried. And I said to him, I've never felt so discriminated as a gay person. But it wasn't until much later I realized that's my own fault, that I even allowed them to have that
Right.
power over me, right? To have that power over me, to tell me that I had to be somebody else. Was it important for me to shoot for them? It was my bucket list, right? It was my bucket list, but I conformed to do that bucket list. And I don't regret it, but I definitely know that through maturity and through time, I can understand what you're saying about not having to have to live loudly with a rainbow flag on you and waving, because what you want people to respect you of is the dishes that you put out and the way you treat your staff and how you cook and you as a whole. But if any advice or opinion I can give in this conversation is that I went through the same thing in that way. And on the other end of it, I have to say that they have to accept all of us.
Right.
Whether it's the food, whether it's the photography, if you love my work, you better love everything about me. You don't get to pick and choose. I'm not a cafeteria, right? And I think that's a journey you're on. And it takes, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's timing is different. And I think it's so important for me, listening to you and seeing a fellow Asian American and knowing culturally how difficult that is to a lot of people out there listening goes, oh, why? You live in New York and LA and you just can be fabulously gay as you want. But there's deep-rooted cultural oppression within our own society that what does that mean?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, it's so easy to say like, oh God, you could be this, but like, that's not my personality, and also I was also finding myself. It's, like when I moved, I was in a relationship and I was in Chicago, and when I moved to New York, I dated a couple of girls, like it just because it felt natural, it felt right. And it's like, yeah, maybe I identify as this, but this feels right. I was not being disingenuous, but like I had fun, like hopefully they had fun. But But everybody has a different journey, and I think uh, I think people that didn't have that struggle or don't have that mental like that issue about being comfortable or whatever, like I think it takes a while for certain people to figure things out,
And we
and
so quickly want to give people labels, right? I mean,
right.
we have LGBTQ, and I'm sure in a couple more years we're going to add more, letters to it. And I'm dyslexic, so it's really hard for me to remember LGBTQ and line them all out.
Yeah.
But the fact is that we are trying to like, where are you on that spectrum of these letters, right? Which
Right.
one do you fall? And if you can't pick a letter, all of a sudden that you're not celebrating who you are, and that's not the truth, right? That's not true. It's also because we have progressed so much advance in acceptance, and at least in our industry now, that people want to rush you to just be. But that journey is on your own. It is your own, because we have conversation offline, and I couldn't be more proud of you to find that journey on your own, because that journey is no different than working really hard to make a dish that you want to be perfect, because that journey is yours. Nobody should tell you when you should write the unicorn down Manhattan. Nobody should tell you that. I'm still waiting for my unicorn, by the way. If there's a real unicorn, I'll do it.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, like we all don't have to be, I grew up in a time where we didn't really have to fight for anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like acceptance was there. So I didn't feel the need to be like, I'm oppressed. I was never oppressed, so maybe that makes me ungrateful. Maybe I'm setting up poor, but I think in the end of the day, we all have to be true to ourselves and be authentic.
And I don't think it's ungrateful. I'm sorry to interrupt you, because this jumped into my head, is that it is the time when we say our journey is that time with the confidence you built. Right? It's truly about when you're ready to be comfortable with your skin, comfortable with yourself, and the confidence, right?
Right.
A lot of people have come to me and said the same thing, that I don't wave a rainbow flag and celebrate LGBTQ. I'm learning that I have that voice, and that's why I use this platform to talk about it and share a story like yours. I think it's really, really important, because I know the last 10 years I've watched so many people on television that inspire me, and watching another Asian person on television inspire me, and then seeing an Asian gay person on television, I'm like, I get it. And I think as executive chef at one of the most renowned restaurants in the world, that by having this conversation today, you are going to inspire so many others.
Well, hopefully. That's all we could do, right? We all only live once, and we have a short amount of time here. And hopefully I leave an impact on not only my team, and hopefully I can leave something that would last for a while.
Well, I want to jump into something fun to talk about. So recently you had a modeling job. This is a new venture that you're on right now. Let's talk about this. Because this is the cross sector of our world colliding together, for sure.
Seriously. I mean, I'm a pastry chef, I work in a kitchen. We very rare.
You are a beautiful, handsome pastry chef.
You're very kind. Coming from you, you're a photographer who you photograph so many celebrities and models. For you to say that, if I could turn red, I'm red right now. But yes, thanks to Blake.
Blake and New York Models. Thank you.
Yes, a New York model. Shout out to New York Models. So I'm doing for Saks Fifth fall campaign. It was very cool. Get to see a different. Sorry.
Do you see this something that you want to put more time into and invest in and work in this industry?
I mean, if the jobs are there, there's a couple of requests that have come in recently. So, whoever wants to hire me, I'm for hire.
Well, I love that you said, I'm a pastry chef, so I'm going to do modeling. But to me, that's actually more powerful, because just being a model without a voice, without having actually a platform of some sort, it's not enough anymore. And these days we love models have 360 experience, right? You bring in I mean, you're gonna just bring the sweets and everybody's gonna love you. I think if Blake just sent out cupcakes, you're gonna get booked all the time.
Yeah, perfect. I don't know that I'll send cupcakes, but we'll send them something.
What do I know about pastry? That's another thing we should talk about. Because I think a lot of people out there, when they hear executive pastry chef, they're going, whoa, that's scary. Because I think all of us can get in the kitchen, heat up a pan, and make an egg and some rice or noodles and say we can cook. But pastry is an art form completely like a science project. How do you get people not to be intimidated about getting into the kitchen and start baking?
I hate that pastry have this thing that people are intimidated because it's a science, blah, blah, blah. Sure, it's a science. Yes, you have to measure things, but I personally approach baking and cooking. I mean, like at Le Bernardin, we make plated desserts. And my cooks would tell you that we always have to walk back, because I would just make things and, we either scale it or walk back the recipe, because I always try to approach it in a cooking way, right? In a cooking mentality that in the end of the day, if I'm making a dessert, I try to view the ingredients as ingredients, not necessarily, fruit or whatever dessert, I think that there is a technical aspect to pastry, which is, intimidates most people. But I think if you go into it with an open mind, it is just cooking. It's, I'm very lucky that I'm in pastry where people are, I meet a couple of people that don't like desserts, but but most of the people love desserts, and it's always like a point of I feel inept sometimes that all I could talk about is food and pastries, because it's like, oh my god, all we can talk about is desserts. But I don't think people should be intimidated. I think practice, approach it with an open mind, and maybe do a couple of simple things, get the simple things, and then you grow from that.
Well, chocolate chip cookies, I got that down. That I can do.
There you go.
So I got that down.
It's simple and it's good.
Yeah. What was the most memorable dish, perhaps the very first dish that you felt most accomplished in the kitchen?
In professional kitchen, maybe? Or
one that you remember that really sets your path on becoming the executive pastry chef? Or perhaps it's on the path already?
I think, I've always, cannelé, which is cannelé de Bordeaux. It's a traditional French pastry from the Bordeaux region of France.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Yeah. To be a pastry chef, you have to speak French. So this one, forget it.
My French is terrible. I mean, I can understand, but my accent is too, it's just, they're just like, So yeah, I just respond to them in English. And they're like, what, you speak French? I'm like, no, I understand what you mean. It's just, yeah.
So describe this dish for me.
No, it's just a pastry that it's baked in a copper mold, and it's a custard, crispy on the outside and custardy inside. And, PSA, cannelé should always only be baked in copper molds. Should never be baked in a plexi mold. So it's coated with beeswax. It's very technical. I think I love making cannelé because it's either right or it's wrong. Like there's no in between. I think my ethos as a chef has always been, I always, flavor is subjective, but the integrity and the technique is not. Right? There's only one way of doing something. It's the right way. So if you're going to do something, like do it right. Like we're cooking for 400 people. And I had this silly idea of like, let's make pot pie. I'm like, it doesn't fit in the mixer. So I had to do it by hand.
I saw that.
It was regret. Like 10 minutes in, I was like, I had way too much coffee this morning. I made pastrami for the first time. I'm just trying to challenge myself and re-challenge myself and make every day sort of fun, and
what's
try
next?
to learn new things.
What's next? What's the new venture? Because nothing can stop you. So
let's hope. I thought 2019, like 2020 would be a great year.
It is
And
a
then
great
you
year.
know, is it?
Well, I feel like it's a hibernation time for us to hatch again, you know?
Yeah. 20, well, in October, I will be filming a show in LA. It's for Netflix. And I'm working on, I will still be at Le Bernardin to reopen. But I'm working on my own project. I'm gonna launch an e-commerce thing. We'll sell cakes, you know, in tins, bonbons, chocolates, and then hopefully in a couple of years, open up like a brasserie with
But you're going to be
a
so busy and becoming a television star. You're not going to have time to do all that.
no. In my heart of hearts, I'm always gonna be in the kitchen. So
Well, I'm so glad that this project went Netflix, and I know you can't give us too many details yet because they want to be a spoiler. But for me, watching another Asian American succeed in the industry, breaking molds, literally breaking molds, and getting your way through exposure, inclusion, I think that's so important. And I get excited when I see Chrissy Teigen, you know, working with David Chen on Hulu project. I see other fellow Asian like you, hearing that you have project on Netflix. It really touches my heart, and only because for many years that I tried to do television work outside the modeling world, I really wanted to have a food show. This is what my DNA really. More a host, not really. I'm never going to be executive chef. That's because I'm probably just too lazy to get up that early and cook and clean the kitchen. But I always want to be part of the hosting process and be a liaison, like I'm here with you, to be able to share your stories. And this is 5 years ago, and it was really hard. I knocked on every studio doors, and there was not any Asian representation during that time. And I have to say, I'm so proud to see that now there's so much more, and people are beginning to, I hate to use the word accept, but understand how important it is in our community. Because
right.
and so for me to see that, I'm so grateful that you're making that path for other Asian community.
Yu Tsai, you're a big part of this, and you know, like you including me in this is incredible, and you giving us a platform. You know, Kirsten, May, you know, Mei Lin is incredibly talented. You know, for you to feature us, you know, to highlight us in this platform, and you know, sharing your platform to share our stories and all of that. It starts somewhere,
Thank
and
you.
you're a part of that, and you know, like it's great, and we all have to support each other. And I think that's how we all evolve, and we need to have this conversation. I think, you know, there's so many topics, like, you know, like the Black Lives Matter, you know, we need to have the tough conversation, you know, for all of us to heal and grow.
And I love that. And also, just for you guys out there, just so you know, that what I found through this time is that, yes, I'm in the fashion industry. I get to talk about hair and makeup all I want, and skincare routine, which you guys can get that. What I found was most rewarding is knowing that the POV from a chef can really depart and talk about immigration reform, right? Look at what Padma is doing with the show Taste the Nation. I absolutely love her show on Taste the Nation, because if you watch that show, it's not about just eating the food, celebrating the immigrants in this country. And guess what? We find out we're all immigrants. And I'm learning about Chinese history on her show. It shows like that, and it shows being represented, talking about people of color, us, you know, and all different shades. It's so ever important. And I think it's so important for media to put these kind of subject matters out there and having these conversations. And yes, sometimes they're tough. LGBTQ conversations are tough. You know, I've talked about equal rights in so many states that you
Right.
still can't have the same rights that you have. Those are tough conversations. But through all that, I do find that the camaraderie with somebody like you and all the other guests has been on the show, they have taught me so much. And I do have to thank Lisa Ling importantly, because when she came on the show, she not only legitimized the show, but she reminded me that as an Asian American, how important is it that I have to continue to do the show and invite guests that is a mirror of who I should be or how I can learn from. And that day when she came on, I told her that Absolutely right. I can't just celebrate Asian American Heritage Month and be done with it and the conversation's over. It's like we can't stop celebrating Black Lives Matter just because you posted black square, right? The
Right.
conversation
Yeah.
needs to continue.
It
So
needs to
that's why,
continue.
and that's
You
why
know,
you
like,
get to see the diverse guest that comes on the show that's from, tomorrow is editor-in-chief of Interview Magazine. I can't
yeah,
wait to talk about
yeah.
how he takes a magazine about fashion, but still deal with the relevancy of what inclusion really means in this industry, how it influence. And somebody like you who are brave enough to share your story and being in such a respectable position, I think that's what these conversations should always be, and we should continue to do that. And not just in here, you continue to share your story on your platform to inspire so many others out there.
Well, like that's all we could do. But like, I think that there's so many ways to approach that, and for all of us to bring awareness and understanding, and like maybe somebody out there will learn something from the talks you've had, and in a different point of view. Honestly, one of the things when we were chatting, you talked about like the whole LGBT has their own racism within our community. That is so true. Like that's something I never really even thought about. I'm like, yeah, that's totally true. But I think as a country, as people, I think we all need to find a way to heal and sort of move on together. And we need to recognize the mistakes that have been done, and the things that happened in the past, and remember that and do better. That's all we could do, is to do better.
And if somebody is lucky enough to have you around, it's going to be a little bit easier because it's always going to be like something sweet to cheer them up when you're around. I mean, I want a pastry chef as a best friend.
I do miss making snacks for my team.
Absolutely.
I miss my team, and I miss making snacks for them.
Well, remember that, because when we get to see each other, when you come to LA to visit and I come to New York, I can't wait to be able to sit across from each other and enjoy an amazing.
Yes. I'll force feed you desserts.
Yeah. only reason he said that, guys out there, because I have a fear of dessert, because I fear how much sugar gets put into dessert. How much?
You say my desserts are non-fat, gluten-free, dairy-free, and sugar-free. So you're practically losing weight as you eat it.
Oh, done. You know what?
I'm from LA, so
Well, I want to end on that note, because I want to end on a happy note of having healthy dessert. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Thomas.
Thank you so much for including me. I mean, this has been fun.
And we'll keep talking anytime you want to come back, and I can't wait to see your next journey, and I want to ride that journey with you. I'll celebrate with you, and that's what we should all do. And in the meantime, guys, everyone out there,
thank you so much.
Be kind to each other, and when you're a little down, pick up a pastry, because it does make you feel better. It does. Thank you so much. We'll talk to each other soon. So yeah, I am going to go to my pantry now and see what I have and whip up some dessert, because that was inspiring. One of the biggest fear I have in the kitchen really is baking, and I love cooking, but baking has always been my big fear, because truly that you can't fake it till you make it. With cooking, a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of acid kind of ties everything together easily, but when your cake doesn't rise properly, it just will not rise properly. Well, on that note, guys, stay sweet and stay kind to each other. And thank you again so much for Thomas to join me today. And I love his story. And we'll be back again tomorrow. And I'll see you guys again. Thank you for supporting Let's Talk. And I can't wait to talk again tomorrow.